Hi, everybody. My name is Jerry Wise, and I've been a life and relationship coach for over 40 years, helping people to self-differentiate and recover from dysfunctional pasts and childhoods. This video is entitled 8 False Beliefs That Control Your Life. These are the core beliefs that truly make a difference in our recovery, and to address them can make a huge difference in feeling better, recovering, and feeling a greater sense of self and self-differentiation. I hope that you'll join my YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, click the bell button, click the join button, and become a paid member. It's only $1.99 a month, and it helps me create more free videos for you. These do take a lot of work and effort, and support from those who enjoy my videos would be greatly appreciated. I also have a master class coming up on December 5th, 2020, on Saturday from 1 to 5. It'll be 4 hours. It will be on Zoom, and it'll be a live workshop with me. There'll be lots of fun things that we'll be doing. More on that later. 8 false beliefs that will control your life. Often we have many self-limiting beliefs which control our lives. If we've experienced narcissistic abuse, or grew up a child of an alcoholic, or had a parent who was a narcissist, or were a child of divorce or abuse, or many other dysfunctional families, we will learn and believe, even as deep as the unconscious level, many beliefs which control our lives. And these I like to share with you are the 8 most common ones I have found. Number 1, there's something wrong with me. I am unlovable. I am inadequate, basically defective. I'm bad. I am insignificant. I'm important. And therefore, if I let people in on who I am, or if I am truly me, I will not be loved, accepted, and cared for by other people. I remember one of the beliefs that there's something wrong with me is I feared acting or feeling stupid or doing something embarrassing that might be perceived as being embarrassing. And there was such shame involved that I am shameful and full of shame. And that was one of my false beliefs that I grew up with. In other words, this belief is that I am exceptional, only in a bad way. I'm exceptionally bad. With these false beliefs, we suffer the imposter syndrome, particularly for ACOA or ACONs, adult children of narcissists, adult children of alcoholics, and many others experience the imposter syndrome, that if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me and you wouldn't love me. We spend our lives hiding or trying to get others to like, love, and accept us when we don't like, love, or accept ourselves. Therefore, I can never accept, know, or be myself. I can't know myself. With this belief, I can't accept myself, nor can I be myself. Because basically, there's something wrong with me. So I can't be me. Because to be me is to be wrong. That is a false belief that we have been imprinted or taught. Again, we feel we are defective. Often this belief is imprinted through shame or shaming parenting, or abuse, or alcoholism, or drug addiction, or all kinds of things that can happen in families, divorce. The family pain can produce these beliefs as well, especially if we become a scapegoat. Number 2, Second false belief. I am powerless over how I feel. Other people or outside events are responsible for making me unhappy or happy. Other people are responsible for my hurt, anger, guilt, and disappointment. I just can't help how I feel. Nobody can, is the belief. Nobody can help how they feel. My good feelings come primarily from others' approval, and my bad feelings from their disapproval. Both are myths. I do not have the power to make myself happy within myself or to take care of myself in the world. I have to rely on other people, things, processes, or substances to make me happy or to take care of me. Therefore, I am a victim. And I am told by many, feelings are automatic. I have no control over them. They're just automatic. And I remember working many decades in the recovery community and in the therapeutic world of therapists and coaches. And I have heard from many that, well, feelings are just automatic, Jerry. You can't do anything about those. You just have to do something opposite of those or don't accept them. So many times we feel powerless over our reactivity and our feelings we believe are caused by others and other and external situations. But if you look in the real world, how come some people are not reactive and don't have the same feelings when a similar event happens to them as when it happens to you? Maybe those feelings are not, they may be automatic for you, but I don't think it's true that that we are powerless over our reactivity or our feelings. I think we can learn to become empowered over our reactivity and over our feelings, especially if we can understand them more, understand them from a self-differentiation approach and understand them as false beliefs. We can begin to get our feelings under control, and it can really change within us if we do that. But the truth is, we can change our feelings by resisting our reactivity, by resisting systems feelings. See my video on true feelings versus systems feelings, and by reconnecting with ourselves and our inner adult and inner child. See my interview with Margaret Paul recently, who wrote the book Inner Bonding. You would be surprised how much you can change your feelings and how you're not just a victim of them. Because not only can we be a victim of other people, we end up being a victim of ourselves if I'm powerless over how I feel. Now I'm a victim of myself and my own feelings. And we don't have to be a victim of either. Thirdly, other people's feelings are more important than mine, and I'm responsible for their feelings. This is a common one believed by probably 99% of the people in the world. Dr. Margaret Paul states in her book, Inner Bonding, which I would strongly recommend you get, when others feel hurt, disappointed, or upset because of something I've done with no intent to hurt them, I'm wrong and it's my fault and I deserve the guilt I feel. Making myself happy, again with no intent to harm others, when others want me to make them happy, it is therefore selfish and unloving and therefore wrong if I try to make myself happy. To be a loving person, I have to sacrifice what I want for what others want. And that is a common misconception. And it goes along with this false belief that other people's feelings are more important than mine and that I'm responsible for their feelings. Again, I feel I cause others hurt, disappointment, anger, upset in others. If I care for myself and not change or try to fix their bad feelings, then I'm just being selfish. It's so illogical. It's so false. And I remember giving an example in one of my earlier videos about the family prayer. I was a pastor at the time, and I knew my mother wanted me to pray at all of our family gatherings. Well, I really didn't want to do that and have that burden tossed onto me because I happen to be a pastor, and that I must always do that every time. I just didn't choose to do that. That is my preference. It isn't necessary that I do that. But to say no was to create in others hurt, create in others disappointment, create in others anger, create upset in others. And for me, I was very worried about needing to fix their bad feelings, and so I would comply. Then I began to work on the work of self-differentiation and began to say, no, wait. I'm saying no with no intent to hurt anyone. I simply am setting a boundary. It's not a desire to not be a part of the family or not even occasionally pray for the meal. I don't mind that. I just don't want the appointed role of doing it every time we are together. That's what I don't want. But again, my concern was, if I do that, I will cause a bunch of bad feelings in other people. That was a false belief. And as I began to walk out a more self-differentiation or self-differentiated move and saying no, and that's a long story that you have to watch that video about that, it began to free up all of us in the family to do what we wanted to do. And not just go by whatever mom wanted us to do or whatever certain people in the family wanted us to do. I hope you'll please join my YouTube channel, and I hope you'll sign up for the masterclass on reducing your reactivity on December 5th, 2020. Number 4, false belief. I can control what others think of me and how they treat me. I can make them like me or love me or be open to me, or by being good, nice, open, vulnerable, compliant. Or I can make them treat me how I want to be treated by getting angry or righteous or blaming. Either I can be the victim or I can be the Viking. Neither one often gives us the result that we truly want for the long haul or in a healthy way. Many of us live as we believe we have the power to control others' feelings, to like me, to accept me, to love me. But like is unconditional, acceptance is unconditional, and love is unconditional. So it's not about performance. It is hard to earn that. Now, that doesn't mean we can't be nice or be acceptable or be loving. It doesn't mean we can't do those things, but those things are given to us as a gift. It's not something we earn in that respect. It's something just like respect. I know respect should be earned, but respect should also be given. And in some situations, we betrayed that respect, and then we may have to do some things to help change that system and change that pattern. One of the difficulties in getting people to see how false a belief this is comes from us having short-term gains or success by making people happy, getting someone to like us, and hustling for love. You know, it does work, but it often ends up not being true love that we get, not getting true acceptance that we get, and not even getting true joy. We get a temporary, superficial love, acceptance, or joy. And it's not long-term, and it's not even based on the real us. It's based on the hustling us. And that's not the real us. Being good, nice, accommodating, helping, caretaking can make people like, love, and accept me. Not really. It's only a myth. But the opposite is also true. If I get angry, reactive, righteous, or blaming, I can make them feel differently about me. These tactics do not change things for the better. Good or bad, others will have their own reactions and feelings and beliefs about us. They have to decide whether they want to change those or not. Because if they want to change them, then maybe we can work on seeing me differently. But I cannot make them change. Fifthly, resisting others' control over me is essential to my integrity. As soon as someone wants something from me, I have to do the opposite, even if it's something I want to do or I want to give, or I will lose myself to that other person we fear. In other words, we feel this overprotective side of us, an overreactive side of us, that if someone's trying to control me, I have to blow up really big and I have to be really reactive to counter it. There's a difference between resisting control and pushing it away versus letting go of the control or the rope, as I call it, between us, and standing in the confidence of not being controlled. Because what's interesting is, except for severe situations, no one can control you. I realize a judge can, a policeman can, an abusive person could. I realize there's situations in extreme cases where that's the case, and those take special work and special help. But for most of us, no one can control us if that's not our choice. I'm the one keeping in and holding on to the rope and keep pulling on the tug of war and pulling the game of tug of war with them. Resisting is the only way for me not to lose myself. The problem is not that others have control over you, but that you fear losing yourself because you are not firmly connected to yourself. The reason we feel so much like we're going to lose ourselves, and we call that engulfment, and we can have a fear of engulfment, which keeps us under the control of others, and we are not connected to ourselves, so we fear that engulfment, or we become reactive and push people away so that we aren't controlled. And actually, their control is controlling our reactivity. So it's paradoxical. Even though we're resisting being controlled, we are resisting the control, so we're still in the game of the control. And what we want to do is step away from it and let go of the tug of war rope. And that's what I train and help people to do, so that they no longer need to resist it, fear it, or even believe it's actually happening. That we have control of ourselves. They only control us with our permission, our unconscious permission. Number 6, false belief. I can't handle pain, discomfort, fear, hurt, grief, disconnection from others, boredom, disappointment, shame, or aloneness. I have to protect myself from these feelings. And I have to protect myself through anger, caretaking, and withdrawal, and activities such as sex or work or with substances as alcohol or food. And again, we oftentimes feel we need to protect our feelings with anger. And anger is a secondary feeling. We always want to find out what's underneath the anger and the primary feeling. And often we feel we can't handle those feelings, so we just express ourselves in anger because we don't feel we can handle those deeper primary feelings. We have the fear we would not survive our own feelings. And I absolutely remember having an experience of that. When I was much younger, my dad passed away many, many years ago. And probably passed away 35 years ago. Like 35 years ago. I remember fearing my own grief or sadness that I would have when he would die. My father had a stroke, which paralyzed him on one side, and he lost his speech. He was a principal of the school I went to, so I was a principal's kid. That was great fun. Some perks, some problems. And I knew his days would be numbered, that he's not going to live a long, long time when you have a stroke that's so debilitating like that, because that causes many problems. He had difficulty walking and all kinds of struggles. And what was so heartbreaking was that when he wasn't thinking about it, he could talk for a brief time. But then once he became conscious of wanting to talk, then he couldn't talk. It was such a cruel illness and a cruel disease. I was so avoidant of my sadness and fear of grief and fear of losing him, I did not want to even touch those feelings because I thought I would be overwhelmed by them. And so many of us have grown up in which we've feared being overwhelmed by our feelings. We just couldn't handle it. And so I didn't do very much of the pre-grief work, which is healthy for us to do. And that's where we do the preparatory grief before a problem occurs. If your parent becomes ill, though they may not be terminally ill, but if they become ill and they're older, it's probably not a bad idea to do some preparatory grief of that. Because the more we begin to process that grief, not that we want them to pass away, we want them to remain with us, but not that we want them to pass away. But I'm starting to get in touch with those feelings so they may not feel quite so overwhelming. I thought I would just not or could not survive the loss of a parent and the painful feelings I would feel. And I think I lost my mother about 3 years ago. And again, thinking, can I endure that? And I would tell myself, of course you can. Remember, if you lose someone who truly matters to you, you will feel grief and sadness. And that's it. You're going to feel grief and sadness. And that you're able to get through that. But I thought it would overwhelm me. And in fact, I thought any of my feelings would overwhelm me. Shame, guilt, fear of engulfment, abandonment. I thought they all would engulf me. The fear of these feelings and avoidance of these feelings, which was much worse than the true experience of these feelings, I did have a fear of death and a fear of others close to me dying. But it is a myth and a false belief that we would not be able to endure our true feelings. We can also feel them. We have more control over feeling them than you might realize. And in working with people on feelings work, many times it can be done in a slow baby step way that they don't have to become overwhelmed by their feelings. We just weren't trained in that. We weren't imprinted in that. We didn't see role models for that. False belief 7. If I change others, then I will be changed as a result. False belief. This is an external solution to our own self-work by changing others. If I can only get my family, my husband, my kids, my parents to be happy, healthy, more mentally healthy, more understanding, more accepting of my life, then my life will be changed as a result. Good luck with that program. Excuse me. You know, one interesting thing in family systems dynamics, many of us are not even prepared for our family to be mentally healthy, mentally mature, more accepting, more loving. We're not even prepared for that. And we think we are. We've been programmed and imprinted to have them behave and act out their roles too, just as they have imprinted us to act out our roles. We just think we're ready for them to change. Because many times I've had parents actually changed and it's thrown the child or the client off because the parents did change and they weren't sure what to do with all that. When a parent became more self-differentiated, more healthy, it was very difficult for them. We don't change by changing others. This is a fantasy, a myth, and a delusion. We can change by healthy giving to others, by healthy helping of others, by healthy loving of others, but it cannot be achieved for our own purposes or to change us as a motive. Because then it's not real helping, real loving, and real giving. It's done to protect. It's done to get acceptance. It's done to get the hustle of love or acceptance or caring from others. And it has a paradoxical effect of making it non-effective. Number 8, the 8th false belief. If I only work on changing me, it won't change other people. If you notice, the last 2 false beliefs are paradoxical. To work on you by changing others will not work. To work on changing me can in fact change others. But I have a lot of people that have a resistance to working on themselves because number 1, they want the changes to come much quicker. You just got to make these people around me change, Jerry. Teach me how to do that. And it takes a longer process to change me so that it then is contagious or affects them. But that's where I've seen real changes happen. And I've given lots of examples in my videos of people who have succeeded in that. How families have been changed because one person changed. To try to change others will not change you. To change you will oftentimes change others, but it cannot be for that motive. And that's a family system maxim. Leo Tolstoy wrote, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself." Rumi, in a quote, states, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself." Roy T. Bennett wrote, "You cannot change anyone, but you can be the reason someone changes. And Jacob M. Browd writes, consider how hard it is to change yourself, and you'll understand what little chance you have in trying to change others. I want to thank you for watching today. Please subscribe, click the bell, become a paid member of the YouTube channel. Sign up for the workshop. I hope you'll follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day, and be wise. Hey, hi everyone. My name is Jerry Wise, and I've been a life and relationship coach for many years, helping people to learn to self-differentiate and dealing with growing up in dysfunctional families. This video is entitled The Trauma of Parentification. I hope that you'll subscribe, like, comment, and join to support making more videos. In joining, you may need to use your browser and not just your phone app. I've found people have struggles if they're not using their browser to be able to join. So not all the apps and not everything on your phone has everything YouTube has. So you may have to use your browser for that. Certainly, we all know children need to be loved, protected, cared for, and have adults take them seriously. But in many families, that doesn't happen. And in many families, they have no choice but to become parentified and take over some non-child roles in the family. And that can be traumatizing. I have many, many clients who have experienced parentification. Parentification occurs when a child takes on adult tasks, and it can either be emotional or instrumental. For example, emotional would be carrying the emotional load of a parent who's not functioning very well, such as an alcoholic father, a codependent mother, and we comfort the codependent mother and are their therapist and support system for that. That's a parentification of the child, because we're not there to take care of our parents when we're children. We can be a comforter, or we can be a scapegoat, or a whipping boy is another way in which we use parentification in the family, and another way in which we are parentified. We must take on a role beyond our just being a child in the family. Parentification is defined as the phenomenon where children take caregiving responsibilities and assume such a role for their parents, siblings, or other family members at the expense of their own needs and their own developmental childhood needs. That's when we are parentified. And so you might ask, well, don't children have to maybe do chores and do, some things? Well, child appropriate and child developmental growth tasks are okay. I mean, certainly kids may need to make their bed, maybe they can even learn to do dishes. But parentification is when you are a child and you're now becoming a parent or an adult. And so it's not age-appropriate responsibilities. So why is it so destructive and traumatizing to be parentified? We lose our childhood when we are parentified as children. We become a parent or an adult when we are still a child. We're parentified and traumatized when we take on inappropriate or high-level adult responsibilities, combined with unrealistic expectations, such as, I had a client who was talking about she was 7 years old. Her mom had basically abandoned the family, going living with another guy. Her father was still there. He was under-functioning. Very dysfunctional family. She's 7. Her sister's 5. She now becomes the parent for the 5-year-old. Inappropriate, high-level adult responsibilities taking care of this 5-year-old child, combined with unrealistic expectations. She needs to get the child up to go to school. She needs to bathe them and cook for them and do all of that. And then she ends up with being traumatized also by, she doesn't know what to do. She knows if you put bacon in the microwave, it cooks. But she doesn't know the plate gets hot too. So she goes in to pull the plate out, burns her fingers, drops on her foot. Now she has a scar on her foot as an adult because she's a 7-year-old trying to do bacon for a 5-year-old. Just not age appropriate. Kids can certainly learn how to use a microwave, but they need help. They need instruction. And they don't need to be asked to do it when they're young. We are traumatized by parentification because it depletes our emotional and physical resources as children. And it constitutes a role reversal or a role corruption. Our role in our family to be just a child gets corrupted or reversed. It also becomes the seedbed of the imposter syndrome. And we become who we are not. And we don't feel real, or we don't feel ourselves. There's some excellent research that adults who are parentified will struggle heavily with the imposter syndrome. I'm a fake. If you really knew who I was, if you really knew me, you maybe wouldn't like me. I don't even know me, and I can't be myself. That kind of imposter syndrome happens with ACOAs, ACONs, adult children of narcissists, and it's certainly when we are parentified, then we don't learn ourselves and to be ourselves. Parentification is really a form of emotional abuse and exploitation that stems from neglect. The parents have checked out, and now we are left with the responsibilities. Or they've checked out of some of their own adult responsibilities, or their own taking care of their own emotional, psychological needs. And they put that on us, and then we are abused and exploited through that neglect. And it certainly makes overfunctioning as an imprinted way of life. My needs are banished. And everyone borrows self from me, though I may only be 7 years old. I may only be 10 years old. I may only be 5 years old, or 13 years old. And everyone borrows a self from me. And I haven't even developed myself yet. And our own selves, we're traumatized because our own selves are defined for us, not by us. And so this is very painful and traumatizing. So we spend the rest of our lives having ourselves defined by other people and not by us. And I work with people to help them learn to have a self defined by themselves and not by everybody else. And our identity as children and then as adults depends on our ability to suppress our needs when we're a parentified child. We learn to be quiet, voiceless, and without demands. This creates low self-worth, low self-esteem, and becomes very traumatizing that way. parentification is a boundaryless experience. In other words, nobody has any boundaries. Children do adult things, adults do children things, or act like children, and children do adult things. There's no boundaries. There's no, this is you being valued, this is me being valued, this is appropriate respect, this is all it's all mushed up. And the boundaries are just overlapped. We all share this big super self of the family. And your role is to be parentified. Or your role is to carry the family, or carry a part of the family which should not be carried by you. And our own self-care is accompanied by intense feelings of guilt and shame. So taking care of yourself is equated with guilt and shame, or connected to guilt and shame. Certainly we never learn to say no, because you can't say no. If I'm 7-year-old and I don't take care of my 5-year-old sister, who else is going to do it? Can I say no to anybody? There's nobody I can say no to. In fact, I just better do it because she's not going to thrive and survive. And we never learn how to say no. And I do like the book, When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. I believe it's by Manuel Smith. I've read it a couple times. It's a great book. It really helped me in the beginning. When I say no, I feel guilty. We then are traumatized by being imprinted with this belief: if I'm a good girl or a good boy, if I'm compliant, if I'm obedient, and quiet, and without my own needs, then I will be loved, approved of, cared about, and not abused. That's an imprinting message that we learn from parentification. Then if we're in a narcissistic family, we learn if I'm a good girl or a good boy, compliant, obedient, quiet, without your own needs, you'll still be ignored, abused, and demeaned in a narcissistic family. So it becomes a double down problem in the family, especially for narcissistic families. And I would recommend watching my last video, which is the 22 rules of a dysfunctional narcissistic family. When we are parentified, we end up being human doings and not human beings. And you've probably heard that phrase before, but people really do talk about, I know I'm a human doer rather than a human being. As parentified children, we are also traumatized by being given way too much information than we can handle, while being given less information that we need. We have too much adult information, and we're not given information that would help us develop as children, and knowledge of things, how to cook bacon in a microwave. But yet I'm given way too much information about my parents' marriage, sex life, emotional functioning, which I can't handle, but not enough information to know how to cook the bacon in the microwave. So given too much information and too little than what we need. And many times we will suffer from what I just mentioned and call the double down syndrome, in which we spend our lives using the strategy of try harder, do more, try harder and harder, versus the strategy of letting go and detachment. We get stuck in the pattern of trying harder, rather than maybe this is a situation in which we need to let go, not try harder. And this gets us into the enabling problem. And I talked with a client, I remember, I think it was a year ago, and she was from, I don't know what state or what country even, and she was still having a 43-year-old son live with her, and she's going, is it my job to create in him greater confidence so that he can function as an adult? And isn't it that my job as a parent? Come to find out, she was a parentified child. Now she has a child who's 43 years old, who can work, living with her in a one-bedroom, apartment, and supporting him, because we just keep trying harder to do what they need to be doing, rather than having boundaries of, no, this is his task. Now, it's not your task as a parent. Your parenting ended at 18. Now you're a mother and an adult. And so we end up being brothers and sisters as adults, not parent and child. That needs to become more even once 18 hits, or some age near that, in which you're an adult, I'm an adult. I no longer can parent you out of these problems. And so he had spent a long time living with her, and he's still, 43 and not functioning and thriving. And we began to deal with that. And it was very helpful for her to think in new ways about parenting and about mothering and about adulting and being mature, both for herself and for her adult child. And certainly parentification can affect our emotional regulation and our physical health. It can cause us to be sick. It can cause us to be emotionally sick when we are parentified. And in fact, sometimes parentified children will be sick as a symptom to voice the pain of the family. Because nobody's dealing with the pain of the family, and it's on the parentified child. That can be a whole nother video in and of itself. As parentified children, we're more likely to become entangled in abusive relationships, victimhood, and martyrdom as adults. And another way it traumatizes us is it creates the foundation for trauma bonding and insecure attachment styles. We find we are bonded through trauma in relationships and have a very insecure attachment style. We want to attach, but we're very insecure. We fear abandonment. We get enmeshed. We're craving love that we never got. And we just hang on and try harder, and then that bond in an unhealthy relationship just continues forward. This toxic, codependent dynamic between parent and child ends up being the basis for our trauma bonding relationships in adulthood with abusers, narcissists, self-absorbed, and low empathy partners. We end up craving intimacy and actually become addicted to intimacy or love because we haven't had it, and we become enmeshed, and then we fear abandonment. Parentification creates sibling relationships difficulties and complicates sibling relationships in adulthood, because they see you as the parentified child even as an adult. And so you're supposed to do more to help mom and dad, not us. That's your job. And then when parents age, we can also be drawn into that as well. Well, who takes care of the aging parent? It's the parentified child that is supposed to do that. So they're fine with their underfunctioning. They want you to overfunction. And sorting that out, I would advise getting some help for that. If you find yourself now as an adult with aging parents, you want to be very careful about your overfunctioning, or you'll get drawn into the same childhood pattern you had before. Parentified children also tend to develop a delay in trauma awareness. So they don't even realize they're being traumatized now. Because they don't have that trauma awareness. It's been so normal. the upside of parentified children as adults is that we are survivors, resilient, and can be self-contained. We learn it's safer to depend on myself than anyone else. So we have that kind of resilience and that kind of strength. We also have the other sides in which we don't know how to get our needs met, may have a hard time having healthy relationships, but we have some upsides. And with almost all things, there are upsides and downsides. Negative things can have upsides. Positive things can have downsides. I would recommend Joanna's Pantazi, Pantazi, her article on parentification and trauma. It's online if you want to learn more. I'll put the reference below in the description. And all of these struggles that I've mentioned are helped by coaching, therapy, books, reading, bibliotherapy, reading, 12-step meetings, support groups. There are, church groups that have great meeting groups for those who grew up in dysfunctional families. And the good news is you don't have to stay stuck in these patterns. That's the good news. There is recovery for you. For the therapists out there, I would have you read Burdened Children, Theory, Research, and Treatment of Parentification. And I would suggest you read Lost Childhoods, The Plight of the Parentified Child. For lay readers, and for those of you who are not therapists, you might want to read Children of the Self-Absorbed, A Grown-Up's Guide to Getting Over Narcissistic Parents. And you might want to read Self-Care for Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. Honor your emotions, nurture yourself, and live with confidence. That's kind of a long title to that book, but I would recommend that. I hope you will subscribe, join, like, and comment on this video. I hope you'll pass it on to your social network. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a great day and be wise. If you're watching this, you probably already know what the scapegoat role is. What's harder to see is that understanding it and having it stop or exiting the role are two different things. Most people reach the first and assume they've done the second, but the role doesn't live in your understanding only. It lives in your nervous system, in your reflexes, in the things you do before you've had a chance to even think. Here are 12 signs the scapegoat role is still running your adult life. I'm Jerry Wise, and for over 45 years, I've helped hundreds of thousands of people heal and get their families out of them by practicing self-differentiation, the process of becoming your true self and releasing the false self you were trained to be in your family of origin, so you can finally experience clarity, peace, and lasting freedom. Sign number 1, the scapegoat reflex: you apologize before you have thought. Someone bumps into you in a hallway, in a shop, or on the street, and before they've even registered what happened, the word is already out of your mouth. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. There's nothing wrong with being polite and cordial. I understand that. But I'm talking about another kind of dynamic that happens for those who have grown up as a scapegoat. Many people overly apologize sometimes, and that's not the problem. The problem is the speed, and there is no pause, no assessment of what actually happened. Your nervous system doesn't wait to figure out whose fault it was, and if you really were at fault, it assumes the fault is yours and fires the apology before you've even thought of anything at all. That reflex was built for a reason in the scapegoat family. Being blamed was constant and unpredictable. Preemptive apology was a way of softening the impact, of taking up less space before anyone could punish you for taking up too much space. Apologizing takes us out of the crossfire, especially if there has been blaming. That is, I'll blame myself before anyone gets a chance to blame me. Decades later, the strategy is still running with strangers, in grocery stores, in meetings at work, and even in our closest relationships. The scapegoat role taught you that the safest thing you could be was to be already sorry. Sign number 2. The scapegoat role makes you rehearse your defenses before you've done anything wrong. You're about to send an email. Before you hit send, you've already drafted 3 versions of how you'd explain yourself if someone misreads it. Of course, this is unhealthy perfectionism or codependency. It is also family programming reminding you that you're not allowed mistakes or to be human. So you must do things right. You're heading into a meeting. You've already prepared and a quiet, calm explanation for decisions you haven't even been questioned about. You walk into a situation that is completely normal, and some part of your brain is in the background quietly building a case against you. This shows up as anxiety, and there is anxiety in it, but it's more specific even than that. This is what the scapegoat role produces. You against the world. The whole world is a courtroom trying to blame and convict you. Growing up, accusations came without warning. Being in trouble wasn't tied to anything you actually had done, but it was just something that happened, and you'd better be ready. So you learn to stay ready. The problem is staying ready for an attack that never comes is exhausting, and it trains your true self to relate to the world as a place where you are perpetually on the edge of being blamed for something, and most often convicted for something. Sign number 3. Compliments feel more uncomfortable than criticism in the scapegoat role. Criticism, while you don't like it, you can handle. You know what to do with being told you got something wrong. You know that territory very well. Compliments are a whole different thing. Someone tells you that you did well and that they're proud of you, that they admire something you made or have done, and instead of feeling good, you feel strange, uncomfortable, exposed. You feel like a fake. It adds one more expectation on you to keep performing. You deflect the compliment, minimize it, and find a way to redirect it. I most often used self-deprecating humor, where I would make fun of my actions, abilities, and qualities. Jerry, you did such a good job with that speech, or you did a good job with that song or that music you played. And I would say, well, for someone of my low intelligence, that's probably pretty amazing. And again, that's self-deprecating humor. In the scapegoat family structure, positive attention was either absent, temporary, or a setup. Praise, when it came before it often got reversed, a way of building you up so the tearing down would land even harder. Your nervous system learned that being seen positively was not safe, that visibility in a good light meant something was about to shift. Compliments still carry that old charge, not as joy, but as a warning that something is about to change, and you may not like it. Sign number 4, the scapegoat training of taking the blame even when you are right. You're in a disagreement. You know you're right. You have a clear head. You have the evidence and the reality, and you could hold your ground. And then you watch yourself concede, not because you were convinced, not because new evidence emerged, or that they had a better rationale or argument, but because the conflict itself became more unbearable than being wrong. So you absorbed it. You said, oh, you're right, I'm sorry. And the argument would end. Relief, and then later,
a quiet kind of fury or anger maybe at yourself. Here's the thing. This wasn't weakness. It was a survival strategy. In the scapegoat family, conflict escalated. Defending yourself didn't lead to a resolution, nor would it calm things down. It led to punishment and more intensity. The only way to end it was to let the other person win. You mastered that strategy. The problem is you're still running it in the relationship and situations where the rules are completely different, where you're allowed to defend yourself, where holding your ground doesn't really cost you anything. But the body doesn't know that yet. I remember when I was in college studying music and political science as an undergraduate, and particularly political science, we would do some arguing or, stating our arguments and giving rationale for why we believe that political system or this political system, etc. And I found it so difficult to do that because even though this is the place where you could do that and it would be accepted, I didn't feel comfortable doing it. And I felt as though I was causing more of a problem or would cause more of a problem by disagreeing. And so I would just either give in or not give a very strong argument and just concede the issue. Sign number 5, the scapegoat instinct to hide what is going well. You get good news, a promotion, a compliment, a raise, online success, something you've worked on lands the way you had hoped. And instead of wanting to share it, you feel pulled to keep it quiet. But not out of modesty or humility, but out of something older and less rational. In the scapegoat family system, success was a trigger. It upset the family equilibrium, particularly if a golden child sibling hadn't achieved that same thing, for example, or if a parent felt threatened by your competence. Visible success could flip the dynamic overnight. Yesterday you were tolerated, today you become a target. So you learn to sand down your wins, to underrate and understate them, to not let the good things show. Now you're an adult with different people in different situations, and you're still sanding down the good things about you. The instinct to hide your success isn't humility. It's an old protection that no longer fits the situation you're actually in as an adult now. Sign number 6. In the scapegoat role, you over-explain yourself even when nobody asks. You make a decision, a normal, unremarkable decision, what to order, which movie to go to, which route to take, why you're a few minutes late, and you find yourself verbally producing a small essay about it. We don't do it to convince anyone because nobody challenged you. You just start explaining and started explaining. There's a pattern that develops in the scapegoat role. You start producing explanations before anyone even asks for them. In families where the scapegoat was expected to be the problem, your actions were never taken at face value. They were scrutinized, misrepresented, used against you. So you learn to preempt that scrutiny by providing so much context that there was nothing left to question. Unfortunately, it never really convinced those who were criticizing you. The people who demanded those explanations are no longer in the room with you. But the habit of producing the defenses and the white papers and the essays about why you're doing or did what you did, those have remained. Somewhere in the background, you're still making your case to the people who required it of you years ago. Sign number 7. The scapegoat role wires you to scan every room for who is upset. You walk into a space, an office, a gathering, a family dinner, and within seconds, you've done a sweep of who's tense, who's avoiding eye contact, is the energy in this room normal, who's upset, is anyone upset with you specifically. You're scanning for danger before you've even said a word. This is hypervigilance. It developed because growing up as the scapegoat Reading the emotional temperature of a room was a needed and survival skill. If you could detect that a parent was in a bad mood before they turned it on you, you had a few extra seconds to adjust, to disappear, to become smaller, and less of a target. That skill protected you, and in that context, it was genuinely useful. In your adult life, it burns through enormous amounts of energy. You're applying that same vigilance in rooms where nobody is looking to harm you, and it keeps you permanently slightly on edge, even in spaces full of people who have no intention of hurting you. Sign number 8, continuing having the scapegoat belief that having needs makes you a burden. You ask for something and you feel guilty, not anxious, guilty, like you already know the answer should be no, and you're putting someone out just by asking. There's a difference between worrying about being too much for someone and simply believing at a low, quiet, unexamined level that you are just too much for others. This belief took root early in the scapegoat family system. Your needs were treated as an inconvenience. They're excessive and proof that some flaw in you causes these needs. The conclusion a child reaches is that needing things is a problem, and that to need less is to be better. The belief traveled with you when you left home. Sign number 9. As the scapegoat, you freeze when accused of something, even when you know you are innocent. Someone implies you did something wrong, or accuses you directly even. And even though you know clearly and certainly that you didn't do it, you may go blank. Your mind empties out. The words you need don't come. You go very still, or you scramble to over-explain incoherently. Either way, you're not able to simply and calmly say, "That's not true." This is a trauma response, not a personality flaw, and not a sign that you're actually guilty. It's what happens in a body that learned in the scapegoat family that defending yourself made things worse, that starting your innocence was never enough, that it would be reframed, disbelieved, or used to escalate the accusation. So the body solution was to go offline, to short circuit before the futile defense could even begin. The problem now is that you carry that response into situations where defense is both possible and even warranted, where the other person isn't your family and the rules are completely different. Your body doesn't know that and doesn't know that yet, but it can learn to know that. Sign number 10, the scapegoat guilt. You feel responsible for problems you had nothing to do with. Something goes wrong at work, a friend is upset, a plan fails and falls apart, and even though you weren't involved, even though logic tells you clearly that this had nothing to do with you, you feel quiet pull of guilt anyway. Not a loud guilt maybe, just a faint one, a low grade, did I cause this somehow? I remember even believing when I was a younger man that I could even bring bad karma to groups or situations, or my worthlessness would affect everyone. I even felt bad weather for events had something to do with me. The scapegoat's role in the family system was to be the explanation for dysfunction. When something went wrong, you were the reason. This wasn't occasional, it was structural, consistent, and more constant in the family. The family needed a designated cause, and you were it. That's what a scapegoat is. Over years, you absorbed that structure, not the specific accusations, the reflex, the automatic movement toward this, well, this might be my fault. Now, in situations that have nothing to do with your family, the reflex still may fire because it was never about specific events. It was about who you learned to believe you fundamentally were. Sign number 11. Good periods make you nervous. Things are going well. You're settled. Relationships are stable. Work is okay. Nothing is wrong. Calmness brings anxiety. And instead of feeling good, you feel uneasy. Not because anything is actually threatening, but because peace for you doesn't feel like peace. It feels like the anticipatory time before something goes bad. And the longer it goes on, the more certain part of you becomes that something is about to go badly wrong. So something in you starts to disrupt it. Creating conflicts helps to quell the anxiety and the worry. We pull back from things that are going well. Self-sabotage in ways you can't fully explain. Doesn't this sound crazy? But this pattern has a lot of logic to it. Growing up as the scapegoat, calm periods weren't safe periods. They were unpredictable precursors to something worse. Stability wasn't a sign that things were okay. It was a sign that things are unknown and who knows what's going to happen next. You learn to trust chaos more than quiet because chaos, at least, was familiar. Now the quiet is available and something in you keeps trying to restore the familiar static, the drama, the chaos, because these feel more comfortable and familiar. Sign number 12. Success feels like something you got away with. You built something, you achieved something, and when it is in your hands, the promotion, the finished project, the good relationship, the life, some part of you is waiting for someone to arrive and explain that it was a mistake, that it wasn't really meant for you. The imposter syndrome says, I don't deserve this yet. The scapegoat version says, people like me don't get to keep things like this or to achieve things like this. People don't really know the real me because in the original system, your wins were taken away, minimized, or used even against you. Success wasn't something you were allowed to own. It was temporary, borrowed, and subject to being revoked. That belief is still operating. The one that says you don't get to own what you've built or what your successes are. It keeps you slightly detached from your own life, always a little outside it, watching, waiting for the correction. Here's what all 12 of these scapegoat traits have in common. None of them are personality flaws. None of them are signs that something is fundamentally broken in you. They are intelligent adaptations to the environment that required them. The problem is that the environment has changed and those patterns didn't change with it. The scapegoat role begins where the family assigns it. The scapegoat conditioning ends when you do the work of actually dismantling it, becoming more aware of it, and that process is slower, less dramatic, and more ongoing than you've probably been told. But it can and does end with work, and these things I teach in the Road to Self program. In fact, you can recognize yourself in any of these signs isn't a reason to feel worse about yourself. It's a sign that something in you is paying attention, and this is where it begins. If you're ready to finally break free and start living with clarity, peace, and a grounded connection to your true self, then join my Road to Self program. Many who have joined say it was the missing piece in their healing journey. It certainly was the missing piece in my own healing journey. After reading hundreds, if not thousands of self-help books, going everywhere I could try to find what is the way I can heal and recover. And that the step that finally helped them get their family out of them and stand strong as their true self began with the Road to Self program. If you're not sure if Road to Self is for you right now, then start with my free 84-minute self-differentiation training. Over 50,000 people have joined the free training as their first step. Click the links in the description to get started. And if you can't find the link, then just go to my website, jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. Don't forget to comment. I hope you'll subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll never miss a new video. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and be wise.
Hi everyone. My name is Jerry Wise, and I'm a life and relationship coach, and I've been helping people for over 45 years now. I've seen all kinds of families, and even families, many families, like I'm going to talk about on this video. The video is entitled When Families Attack. And I want to bring some common sense, maybe some calmness, and maybe some direction to this particular topic. There are many of you out there who have had families who are attacking, whether in groups, whether individuals, but many times, and again, a scapegoat is often an attacking family. I hope that you'll subscribe, like, comment, and join and support this YouTube channel. These videos I provide free for people. If you'd like to go to my website, which is listed below, there's a donation button. I'd certainly appreciate anyone who's willing to give whatever amount to help keep free videos coming. They do take time, energy, effort, etc. If you would like to join and become a member of the YouTube channel, you may need to go to your browser to sign up, and not just on your phone. Or on your phone, use your browser. Don't just use the phone app. I first want to say that if you are someone who experiences an attacking family, and I'm going to talk about what an attacking family is, I suppose some of you can somewhat surmise what that might be. You're not alone. There are many people who experience that. And in fact, it is more frequent than we actually want to believe. I think it happens very often. It can be quite painful for years, even for a whole lifetime. I've talked to people in their 70s, or whatever, and they've talked about how their family has been attacking them since childhood. I want to also mention denial. Denial is one of the biggest hurdles, and I'm going to talk about some of the symptoms of attacking family, because denial is a big issue for healing when there are families who attack. And I mean emotionally attack and in many other ways. Secondly, after saying how serious it is, I also want to say it's not as serious as we think. I'm not minimizing anyone's pain, my own or anyone's pain with a very attacking family. But the problem is our over-seriousness or our seriousness about it may keep us in a state of enmeshment or equilibrium with the attacking family. And so that's a part of the struggle of being the one who's being attacked. It becomes so serious that we cannot maneuver out of it. And so working on that seriousness can be very important. And I'll talk about that a little later. We often get caught up in the keep trying harder loop, which gets us nowhere. Well, if my family's attacking me, I'll try to bake more cookies for them. I'll try to be nicer to them. I'll try to attend more things. I'll try to not yell back. I'll try not to, misstep or overstep. And then we're always trying harder, but it doesn't tend, that type of trying, because trying harder within a system only keeps the system in its status quo. It doesn't change it. And it doesn't change our functioning. They attack, I try harder. They attack, I try harder, because we're wanting them to change, so we won't be attacked. But trying harder is not the approach, and I'll talk about that today too. And the bottom line, and I have been preaching this for ever since I became a marriage and family therapist years ago. The bottom line is you can live without your family. It is very difficult to live without inner peace. Now, I'm not suggesting lightly throwing families away. I'm not, but I also don't want to deify families either, to neither deify them nor demonize them or throw them away lightly. So I want to share that with people, because sometimes people will talk about, oh, well, my family is, and by the way, I may not be talking about your family. There's a whole continuum of families, a whole line from attackers who are annoying, all the way to attacking families who produce physical harm to family members. So, or financial destruction, things like that. So there's a whole continuum. I'm going to be talking about kind of the middle today. So if you fall on either end, please bear with me. I think some of the things I'll say are still helpful, but it's hard to talk to everyone's family situation on a video. And I do the best I can to kind of make it generic. And then I encourage people to get into therapy, get into coaching, contact us for help, and then we'll help you with your specific family and what things you can do. So, let me also say that I work with many, many clients who have had and experienced attacking families. From Saudi Arabia to California to, British Columbia to Miami to Mexico to Australia. Families are families all over the world. They are made up of people. I realize customs can be different. I realize traditions can be different. I realize even religion can be different. But families are still humans. And Bowen's natural family systems approach, I think really applies to all families. Even if you dress differently, think differently, we're still a part of this creation and a part of this universe and a part of the world. And so we're going to function in a certain way. We are human, but we're also an animal or a mammal. And so there are some similar things that go on inside our brain, wherever you're located. This video is not intended to replace professional help when dealing with families who are physically harmful or financially devastating. You may need a therapist, you may need a coach, you may need an attorney, you may need, there may be specific support that you want to get for those kind of difficult situations. And I've worked with families who've had all those struggles and problems. And clients who are facing all of those difficulties. Certainly get professional help when dealing with seriously toxic families. These notions are best used with a health-being professional. There are many which I believe are also just common sense. And so I probably will present common sense things as well. Attacking families is often emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, financially, devastating and traumatizing. And again, I don't mean to make light of it. We'll talk about making it not so serious later. But I understand its seriousness and its traumatic effect. Families who attack use many forms of maltreatment, as you can well imagine. Manipulating, labeling. I always like labeling. That kind of a little went along with my family. Labeling is very painful and difficult. Rejecting, refusal to show affection, isolating, terrorizing, or maintaining a climate of fear or threat, ignoring, corrupting. I remember one client whose father brought him into a criminal enterprise when he was a late teenager, like 18, 19 or whatever, and again, corrupting his own son. And his son was fortunately able to avoid prison, but did have consequences because he was involved with his father and wanted his father's approval and acceptance, and dad's going, hey, let's do this horrible financial situation. There's also hitting or physical maltreatment. Spiritual abuse. I hear this often. Well, you're going to go to hell if you don't believe the way we do. God won't love you if you don't go to our church with us. No one will accept you. If you marry that Muslim, Sikh, Jew, Catholic, Protestant, our family will never accept you or your marriage, which again is a part of that spiritual abuse. And it's not the love that often the religion preaches or teaches, but it's the abuse, the laws, the rules, and you are on the outside of them. And so they will use spiritual means to control you, and guilt and shame. There's also maltreatment by attacking families in financial maltreatment, lawsuits, CPS, Child Protection Services, or whatever you call it in your area, utilizing the criminal system, the family social service system to attack. There's scapegoating, as I have a couple, 2-3 videos on scapegoating on my channel. Scapegoating someone, I think, is when the family attacks. There's controlling. Controlling can be very, very painful, difficult, and maddening. There's infantilizing, and again, bullying and possessiveness, which is, you're still my child, I own you, and you need to do what I say, I'm the parent, even though we're adults. And if you don't do what I say, then you're going to hurt your mother. She's going to feel bad. I'm going to reject you. And again, that's that infantilizing and possessiveness and bullying. Our parents don't own us. They've actually never owned us. Parents are not supposed to own children. Parents are responsible to raise, love, and nurture and educate children and keep them safe, not own them. We're not anyone's possession. There's also the maltreatment of lying and triangulating against you. Again, getting others on board to be negative towards you, or what I also call the cabal, getting the cabal of a group of people, or all the siblings against one sibling, or mom and dad and the 4 siblings against this one sibling. That's a big cabal. Then there's also when families attack, withholding children or grandchildren, using children as a weapon or as a negotiating tool. It gets very, very ugly at times. And of course, there are many other ways as well. I can't go into all of them today, but I wanted to at least share, if we're in that kind of situation where some of these things are happening, and really could even be one of the things, you've got kind of an attacking family. Because that's not an accepting, loving, mature family. It means, boundaries are crossed, or we don't have any boundaries at all. And it really is upsetting and can cause our inner peace to evaporate. And maybe we've never truly had our inner peace because we grew up in this family. Why do families attack? And I ask that in my workshops, and I go, why are families treating you badly? Families attack to expel something from the family. The attack is the symptom or the challenge, not the problem. Families attack to expel anger and pain that they cannot handle. And that's why I do try to help people understand that families attacking, it's not about you. It is about the family not able to handle their anger and pain, which they've never been able to deal with. And so, I think, now, it doesn't mean it's not focused at you. It can be painful. I understand that. But it's not about you. Not only do families attack to expel anger and pain, and there are some other reasons why they can attack too. If you have some mentally ill family members, if you have personality disorders, but even then you're talking about anger and pain and brokenness that's never been dealt with. So it gets expressed through the family attack. Families attack to maintain the family's super self, or one self, or family self. It's this overarching self that we're all supposed to partake of. And actually, there's a healthy explanation. You know, when you're an infant, you don't have a self when you're an infant. We haven't developed that far. So, and some even say the only self they have is either the breast, or, if they're infants, there's no sense of I-ness at that point. And so their whole world is about mom or dad, or that's their whole world. And they don't have a sense of self. A family super self, and that's a healthy phase to not have a self as we're growing into becoming a self. A family super self is a unified self that everyone partakes of, because the real self is not allowed. And so it is not I am me in the family, it is I am us, I am we. And emotionally we function that way. And then if we get attacked, or if the system expels this anger and pain out to different members, then again, it can be very difficult, because it's the only self I've got. It's the only self I'm connected to. And it can be very difficult for us as adults. Families attack to use power to deal with their weakness and failings, and their psychological and emotional issues. And I work with narcissistic families, children of narcissists, and commonly, again, the narcissist will attack to continue to keep that super self of maintaining their supply. They're empty inside. Attacking gives them something, and that can be very painful. Families attack as a continuous extension of previous generational trauma. You're being attacked today by your family probably has 5 generations of history to it. I know that sounds, for some people, that may sound, oh, that's crazy, Jerry. What are you talking about? Well, if we had movies of your parents, their parents, your parents' parents' parents, et cetera, 5 generations, we might find the origins of this type of pain, hurt, anger, and getting expressed in attacking ways. Also, families who attack act cult-like and gang-like and cabal-like when they haven't experienced a real healthy family. And oftentimes they haven't experienced that real healthy family. They don't know what that is. Or if they do, they can't maintain it. Because there's still, again, so many systems feelings. And if you want to watch a video I have on systems feelings, I have several videos on systems feelings. There's so many feelings in the system that they can't maintain a good, healthy, for very long, or because there's just too much pressure to get them back into the rut and back into the row to hoe. And we keep in that row, and it's hard to get out of that row. I come from Indiana, so I think of corn rows and rural kinds of, sorry for those of you in urban areas, but rural kind of things. Let me give you a couple examples of attacking families. And these are all real. They are all true, but I've changed many of the details so that you would not know who I'm talking about or be able to identify them. Bob's family was very wealthy and very toxic. Narcissistic parents. He was the third of 4 children. He experienced maltreatment physically, scapegoating, ignoring, shaming, and a miserable childhood. I mean miserable. They had everything but happiness. They had everything but a good family and a loving family. As an adult, he experienced ignoring, manipulation, threats of unfair inheritance financially, and put downs of his wife and kids, and in fact put downs of every decision he would make. That was the norm. Eventually, Bob decided to go no contact at the age of 65, and he has found a great deal of relief, less stress, and he feels more able to fulfill his own purpose and not always be caught up emotionally with his family's unhealthy drama. And again, his coming out of denial is taken, not that he had denial about dad was awful. He always kind of knew that, but again, just pulling it all together and having the veil pulled away and the scales falling off your eyes so you can actually see what's going on in the family and how they function with me and how I function with them. Let me talk about Judy's family. Judy is a nurse. She grew up with a narcissistic mom. She was the youngest of 5 children. She endured put-downs, verbal shaming, toxic religious beliefs in the family. She could never please her mother. The siblings would attack her and her choices, her beliefs, and any move she might make to be herself or to be a self. The siblings all had a cabal of the siblings where they all kind of clumped together and would exclude Judy, and very painfully into their adulthood. And they just could not get along, but would always blame Judy and never look at their own behavior. One of Judy's sisters, when Judy was young, one of her sisters, because all of her sisters were older, lost a child. And that was traumatic, and it certainly would be. But from then on, that sister was the focus of everyone's concern, tiptoeing around her feelings. The youngest child, Judy, had to always defer to the sister who had lost the child. And basically, the sister who lost the child got infantilized for years. Poor Mary. Mary. Well, this is, 4 or 5 years later. Poor Mary, and just infantilized. Of which that can keep you in an unhealthy grief position. And also, there's too much emphasis in which it doesn't allow us to grow up and deal with our own challenges and problems. Mary's not the only one to have lost a child. Many people have. It would be a horrible thing to have happen. But we also want to move on with our lives. And we need to move on with our lives. It doesn't mean we can go back before the child was lost, and we'll never forget it. But our job is to live life, even with whatever comes. So Judy then later on in her life, when she was having some problems, maritally, job-wise, relationship-wise, church-wise, interpersonal relationship-wise, Judy began to become more self-aware and more self-defined and more self-regulated and actually becoming more self-differentiated. Now Judy has become and has a more positive relationship with her siblings. She's able to stay calmer around her siblings. She's able to address problems that she doesn't like or has not thought kind, and to address those. Her narcissistic mother has passed away. Her siblings have been able to confide in her more and have begun to challenge their beliefs about their growing up due to Judy's growth and maturity. She stayed connected with her siblings. She could have gone non-contact with everyone, but she stayed connected with her siblings. Those were her values, and was able to maintain more of a sense of self in a calm, non-anxious presence, which also tends to open up other people's thinking and emotional functioning, if we can do that. She has utilized good boundaries while accepting her siblings who lived under a functional alcoholic father and a narcissistic mother. This has calmed down the family's anxiety, and a couple of sisters have even entered therapy. So there is hope for some families if we can get ourselves under control. But Judy didn't choose to get herself under control to change her family. She got herself under control, her anxiety, her beliefs, her sense of self, more in order and growing up and maturing for herself, not to change the family. If we do that, there's a greater chance it can affect and change a system. Lastly, let me talk about Sarah's family. Sarah is a physician who grew up with a mom, a professor, and a dad who's an attorney. Both are narcissistic sociopaths. They would help Sarah when she needed their help with an eye to financial gain as a result. They would rage at her, accuse her, lie to her, and have even stolen money from her. Now they've lied to the IRS and their accountants about the intertwined financial dealings with their daughter Sarah, who's now 50 years old now. Her parents are still trying to take advantage of her and Sarah's and her money that they have squandered, blaming Sarah for all the misunderstandings, all the lies, while pleading they were only trying to help her in the past years. Gaslighting and all of those things. Very painful attacking by family. In other words, you do what we say or we will unleash all these negative things on you. Sarah has now engaged an attorney to sort out the enmeshed family financial dealings, and she may be stuck with a large tax bill, who knows, because of their mismanagement of her assets and them taking money. She has been doing much more self-care. She has become more realistic about the lack of love and empathy her parents have always shown. And again, part of that's coming out of denial that, my parents really haven't been loving and they haven't shown empathy. What should I do? What does that mean? She is moving towards no contact with them. But with enmeshed families, this can be a hard process and an emotional process that is very upsetting or difficult. So it's not easy to do that. And many times when I see comments on my YouTubes, some people will say, just go no contact and let those crazy people go. Well, you may have gotten to that place. They may not be at that place. And they may have lots of different struggles, financial intertwining, dealings. I've got one man, if he just lets his family go, does he let the 62 million go and then just live free? Or does he see if there's somewhere in between he can, for inheritance, somewhere he can deal with that and have less problems in interaction with his family while also not losing financially? So not that money is money is not worth me being miserable inside. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying the circumstances vary with people. And so let's just be empathetic to other people who are still struggling in their families. Sarah's becoming much less entangled with them, taking some losses just to be free from them. And as I have mentioned, families can attack in many ways. What can we do to deal with our functioning being challenged by an attacking family? first of all, we want to remember that we're the glue that holds together the attacking family and the cabal. You know, the gang, the cult. We're the glue that holds it together. Because if you focus on someone outside, if you triangulate on someone, the scapegoat, then we all can feel glued together and close. And, oh, you know how she is, you know how he is. And they all, you know, have an enmeshed or an attached, they are attached due to that attack and due to the attacking process. And so we're the focus. So if we're the focus and if we're the glue, I want to melt as much of that glue as I possibly can. So I want to maybe take a gray rock approach, a technique that involves avoiding interaction with a maltreating person, someone who treats me with maltreatment, keeping unavoidable interactions brief, giving short or one-word answers to questions, communicating in a factual, unemotional way, matter-of-fact way. So going gray rock can be a help to that, so we're not providing them extra information to be able to help their glue stay together, because again, we're that glue, and again, we're the focus. We don't want to engage very much. It only strengthens their glue. And so we want to interact minimally. And we want to starve them of information if a family is attacking. Remember, it is a focus on you, but not about you. I know it's so hard to imagine that because it seems so personal. Families who attack are expelling anger, pain, to maintain the family's equilibrium, because it must go somewhere. You know, I'm sorry you got chosen in the family system. That probably has to do with about 5 generations, as I've mentioned. And there's a good book. Oh my gosh, what? I can't remember there's a good book about thinking back many generations to the core of how these family things are happening right now. And I'll put that in the description for this video. Don't triangulate with the cabal or members unless there's an opening or someone starts to see the light, but proceed very cautiously. I would use these 6 steps. 1, admit you're being attacked, not simply annoyed or accepting the attacking anymore. We have many denial statements about attacking families. Well, that's how they are. Well, they don't really mean it. You know, they've always been this way. We'll tell ourselves. They are my family. They're not trying to hurt me. They're just mad or moody. And we say that time and time and time again. And it keeps us in our denial of what's really happening. Secondly, understand your denial and why you have it and where you started learning it. When did your denial begin? Understanding our denial also focuses on our fears, low self-esteem, emotional dependence on the attacking family, financial dependence on the attacking family. Why do we stay in denial? Fearful that we'll have to let go of our fantasies about having a wonderful Hallmark family. It's not going to happen. Thirdly, understand your functioning and work on completing your unfinished business and issues which are at work inside you. These issues that we have inside, yearning for parents who will love us, not caring for ourselves and being overly critical of ourselves, those kinds of issues will keep us bound to this attacking family. I do like the book Inner Bonding, and I would recommend that by Margaret Paul. I think you might find that helpful because we don't want to be bound by those issues. It will only keep us bound and connected to the attacking family. Fourthly, confront or alert your family of your new awareness and pain, if possible. Not always is that possible. Not always is it advised. You may want to get some help as to whether you do that. But you can advise them, I am unhappy with being criticized so often. I'm putting the family on notice that I am unhappy with being criticized so often. I don't like the questions about my personal life. I will share with you things about me on my timetable. When I come over, I do not want to hear about Mary, Karen, Bob, Steve, my career, my relationships, my looks, etc., etc. I have been unhappy about this for a long time. You can also say, and this is not the kind of relationship I want to have with my family. And if you want a different relationship, I'm open. If you don't, then we may be drifting apart. Fifthly, pay attention to your personal true feelings and to your system's feelings. You can learn more about those. Take a look at the video called True Systems versus Systems Feelings. I made a video and that might help you to, so you can kind of gear, is this how I'm really feeling or is this how I'm supposed to be feeling? And see, that's the difference. One is how I'm really feeling. Systems feelings are how I'm supposed to be feeling. Maybe I'm supposed to feel guilt when really you're not really feeling guilty about this. I don't feel guilty about anything I just did, or I don't feel there's really any need for any guilt, but I feel guilty. That's systems guilt versus true guilt. Sixth, take your power back. Learning to say no. Great book, When I Say No, I Feel Guilty by Manuel Smith. Setting boundaries. Enforcing boundaries. Explore no contact if necessary, or even a very low contact. You can say, I will no longer allow you to criticize and correct me. I am no longer a child, and I don't expect to be treated like one. Learn to say, please stop. You must stop. Stop or I will leave. You heard the intensity of those three. It's okay if they'll stop if I say, please stop. I'll interrupt people if they're being attacking. I will just interrupt them and say, please stop. And if they're not going to stop, then I'm going to exit. Be sure to be a mirror and not a sponge. The Ross Rosenberg, observe, don't absorb. Be a mirror, not a sponge. In other words, I'm going to mirror back to you what I see you doing. I'm not going to absorb the feelings because of what you're doing. And these are things that I teach in my sessions with clients. Maybe even, I don't like how you are acting towards me when you continue to put my wife down and that I'm a bad husband. Versus, well, I guess they're right about me and that's what they say, or I need to take in their anger or criticism and change my behavior or attitude. One is mirroring, one is absorbing or being a sponge. And then, of course, we want to stop trying harder and harder and harder and work on letting go and detachment. Life is short. I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. You'll join, like, and comment. If you want to make a donation on my website, I'd certainly appreciate that. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Have a great day and be wise.